Okay, welcome back, my financially intentional people. Super juiced to have Dr. J join us again, our CFP expert for the podcast. And today we are going to talk about who is going to take care of you when you get older. Hey, Dr. J.
Hey, Nasima, you just want to talk about the rough question of life, what am I going to do when I'm 90 years old and can't wipe my own butt,
We are going to talk specifically about long-term care planning and what that looks like, who should get it, when you should get it, and all of those fun things, and why you need it. Because we know that that's one of the most expensive times of your life. And so we have to start planning for it now.
Absolutely. Let me give you a stat that'll probably scare you a little bit, but that's okay. So the U.S. Census, and I work mostly with child-free, childless folks. The U.S. Census found that for childless folks over the age of 55, 2.5% get any financial support from their family. That's nobody. But here's the thing, Nasima, you're a parent. In the same 55 and older, 1.5% of parents got any support. You actually got less support than we did. So everybody the child-free folks always get that question, who's going to take care of you, blah, 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 blah. Truth is, nobody's taking care of any of us. Having a kid doesn't automatically take care of your long-term care. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you assume that you're going to take care of your kids and then eventually they'll turn around and take care of you. But obviously that assumption has been proven wrong statistically.
Look, you work in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever worked at a nursing facility, by the way, it's a rough life. I work as a paramedic. It's tough. If you actually ask them how often did the family come visit, oh, it's sad. I mean, it is Christmas and Thanksgiving, and if they're sick. It's not. I don't mean to be a bummer, but it's just the reality check.
I can't even imagine that. I mean, I have my grandfather's turning 95 this year. I was just at his house. We're always there. I can't imagine him being alone in one of those facilities. And I've never, fortunately, worked in those facilities, but I have been in the facilities in different capacities, and not a great experience. Not somewhere where I would actually put my grandfather. I would opt for more in-home care.
Well, so by the way, I think we all would rather be taken care of in our house. Seriously, let's think. There's a stat in real estate. Single level houses are selling better than 2-level houses now because people are getting older and don't want stairs. Makes sense. I've got stairs here, and as I get older, I probably won't want to do that. But here's the thing. In-home care is expensive. Nursing home care is expensive. And who's going to pay for it? And who's going to do it? And, also we get into this other question, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a burden on anyone. I don't want my family members wiping my butt. Just calling it out. And I think the challenge is everybody kind of looks at long-term care, and it's stupidly expensive. So to give you an idea, we're here in 2023. The national average is about $108,000 a year for nursing home care. And Nasima, for you, that's 3.7 years as a woman. So, we're talking $400,000 in today's dollars. Now, we know you're, 30 years old right now. So that's 60 years from now when you're in a nursing home is going to be a whole lot more expensive. And that's the hard part is the math just gets the nursing homes are increasing, long-term care costs increasing by 5% every year, compound interest. So it's going to double and triple in that time. And I don't know. What's your plan, Nasima? Who's going to take care of you when you get older?
I am not depending on my kids. That is for sure. This is something that I actually sat down with my planner this year and created a plan around preliminarily. I do plan on getting a long-term care specific policy in my 50s. So I'm 41. But what I'm doing right now is I put a rider on one of my life insurance policies so that it covers a long-term care portion. And right now, because I'm young and I'm healthy, it's relatively inexpensive, though as a part of my whole like life insurance planning strategy can kind of be cost prohibitive for people. But for me, I made it a priority just like anything else in my budget. So just like roughly number speaking, just that part of that rider is about, I want to say like another additional $150 a month that I'm paying to make sure that I have coverage. And that's kind of like a safeguard safety net kind of coverage in the back end that's going to cover all of my expenses on top of whatever policy that I implement in my 50s. Does that sound
Okay.
right to you?
You're in the right ballpark. I'm going to
Hmm.
challenge your numbers a little. So I've done the math, and we'll include a link in here to actual like example policies. I tend not to use the life insurance long-term care combos because it doesn't do either perfectly. It's kind of like a spork. It's a spoon and a fork together. It's not perfect. Not bad, but just not perfect. But the actual math, as far as I see, the sweet spot of if you're going to buy a long-term care policy is actually about mid-40s. And let me explain what happens. So if you're going to buy a long-term care policy, two things are going on. One, your parents' health impacts your policy cost. So, for example, if one of your parents has a cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, something like that, your policy goes up giant. If both of your parents get diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's, you will not be able to get long-term care insurance or standard long-term care insurance. There's some gimmicky stuff you might be able to get, but like essentially like no standard policy. So your parents' health becomes an issue, and then your health becomes an issue. And each year you get older, the cost of the policy goes up. So it's a balancing act. So keep in mind, long-term care insurance covers in-home, assisted living, and nursing home. And usually what it is, like you set it per day. So like, $250 a day or whatever it's going to cover. And it will cover each of those. The problem is that's expensive. We're talking about covering hundreds of thousands of dollars of care. Well, the insurance company's taking a bet that you're not going to use the insurance. Now, the number is about 2/3 of people in the U.S. will end up in some type of long-term care. So I always kind of joke people, are you feeling lucky? Like, can you pick that down? And if you're in a couple, it becomes more important because if one of the members of the couple needs long-term care, it can eat the retirement funds of the other one. So my wife needs to go in. She's in there 4 years. I got to pay. Forget it. I mean, I'm not paying up because, of course, I'm going to spend every money I got on my wife. And now I'm going to be eating ramen noodles for a living, forever. I mean, it's just, it's one of those you have to protect yourself. But why'd you say, hey, I'm going to wait till my 50s?
I just thought that that was the magic number. Like I have always heard that in the financial planning community that long-term care insurance is something that you consider in your 50s. And I've never been told otherwise.
That's because people don't want to think about it earlier. I actually have
Ah,
clients in their 30s getting long-term care policies.
okay.
Now, the math on the 30s, I don't know. I don't love it. But 45 tends to be the sweet spot. And there's a couple there's one insurance that I use. But I don't sell insurance. I just, I'm a advice only, fee only. So when I say I use, these are the ones I like. But they actually offer what's called a 10 pay. So you pay 10 years and just done.
Hmm.
Or a single pay, you pay it all up front. Now, the single pay up front is stupid expensive. It actually saves you money, but I don't have a couple $100,000 extra to put there.
So that's the ballpark we talking about. We're not talking about a couple thousand. We talking
No.
about some racks you're gonna have to put up in order to get.
But here's the
this,
difference.
single pay.
You're paying that $1,500 or so a year on that life insurance for some coverage for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Do the math on it. You're paying
Yep.
more than that.
Right.
And it's going to go up over time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before I go even that far, I got to talk about some weird stuff. So you're in California. California is actually looking at whether or not they should put a state plan that copies Washington for long-term care. Have you seen this yet?
I think I heard about it in the way that it looked almost like the care. It was negligible, I should say.
Yep.
Yeah.
As of today, Washington is the only one that has in place, but California, Pennsylvania, New York, and a couple other states are all like poking around it. California is trying to get something together in the next year or two is what they're looking at. And they're all copying Washington. So let me explain this. So about 2/3 of long-term care is actually paid by Medicaid. Now, by the way, keep in mind, Medicaid means you're broke. Like you have no money, you have no assets. And as a medic, I knew a Medicaid facility because my feet would stick to the floor and like literally like it's disgusting. I'm not trying to judge. It's just it was disgusting. You know, you're talking about nursing homes where it's 4-door room and you know like just it's not a great quality of life. So the states are creating these programs to save the Medicaid. So let me talk about Washington's program. So let's say Nasima moves to Washington. She would have to pay half of 1%, it's 0.51% of her income for the rest of her life, as long as she lives in Washington, for a minimum of 10 years. And then you get 1 year of coverage for $100 a day. Now, mind you, $100 a day buys you nothing in a nursing home. Okay. I don't want people to get long-term insurance unless they get at least like $250 a day of coverage. So you're giving up half of 1% of your income for life in order to get $100 coverage. What do you think about that?
I don't know what $100 a day buys. I get paid $100 an hour as a nurse, so the math ain't mathing to me.
No, it isn't. And what happens is people go like, "I've got my long-term care covered," and I'm like, "No, you got screwed." Like, there's nowhere in between. And the way Washington did it, and California will probably do the same in other states, is if you had your own long-term care policy in place, you could get out of paying the tax. So, you know, let's play with this for a second. I got to grab my handy dandy calculator here.
And do you have numbers on those kind of premiums for the long-term care insurance starting at around 45 that you typically see? Okay, perfect.
So look at it this way. All right. When you start in that, in general, people say long-term care insurance is affordable for people making who have about $500,000 net worth to about $3 million. If you have less than $500,000, you just don't have enough money to pay for a policy. It is, and you're going to rely on Medicaid. If you have more than $3 million, you're probably going to pay for it out of pocket. So it's like this sweet spot. Now, by the way, you know, a large part of people that are listening to this are going to be in that sweet spot at some point in their life. Getting to $1 million is not hard in the U.S. if you work at it. And that's where you want to protect that money. And what happens is when these state plans come across, so Washington did theirs, a whole bunch of people are like, "Oh, I want to opt out and get a long-term care insurance policy." And then all the long-term care companies are like, "Yeah, we're not taking anybody else because we've been overwhelmed by thousands of people wanting it." So, you know, let me give you some examples. Let me grab my insurance examples. So let's say Nasima, so she's age 40 and has a 4-year benefit period. So 4-year, 3.7 is on average. So covering a little more than that sounds good. And assumes $250 a day benefit, 3% the compound interest. So by the way, these policies, you have to have a compound interest rider, so it grows over time. There's $250 of coverage right now versus when you're 90, two different things. So if you want to get like a real policy, it's about $4,000, $4,200 a year. So you're paying $1,500 a year right now for how much coverage?
Like I said, it's not a lot of coverage. It's like kind of like a safeguard cover, a safety net to catch what is not covered by a policy later on.
Yeah, so it's a feel good policy. Like it feels like you got something done, but didn't really get it.
Right.
So $4,200. Now, by the way, don't quote that exactly because it depends on your health and life.
Right,
and,
exactly.
You know, if you're a smoker, it goes up or whatever. You know, but it gets kind of weird. So women pay higher premiums than men. Now, this is not just like a pink tax. This is what happens is statistically, women will use more of it. That's why you're being charged more. But the secret is if you're in a couple, you can share the policy. Like I get 3 years and you get 3 years, but together we can like take some of each other's years if we don't use them. And they give discounts for couples because they assume one part of the couple will take care of the other one if they're getting into a long-term care situation. Yeah, so there is a like balancing it. Now, here's the interesting one for you since I have the number. Right now at age 40, it's $4,200. At age 50, it'd be $5,000 a year. So it goes up $800 a year. And you're going, well, but I paid extra for. So what happens is if you do like a 10 pay where you can lock it in or other things, you're starting at a lower rate and you'll end at a lower rate. You're paying for more years, but you have coverage. I think the challenge for long-term care So you go, well, I'll put $100,000 aside in a bank account and that'll take care of my long-term care. Maybe that'll take care of 1 year, but the question is, when are you going to long-term care? A great example is one of my friends, I was in high school. His mom in early 40s had early onset Alzheimer's. And then she was in a facility for decades. I can't even imagine the bill that was run up on that. So it depends on when you go in. If you can tell me what year you're going to go in and for how long, I can do the math and say, put this money aside. I mean, what are you thinking, Nasima?
Sounds like when people ask me when the baby is born. It's going to be born. Like, what time is the baby going to be born? If I could tell you that, I would be a very rich person. Like, nobody knows these things. There's no way to predict these things. Even with family history, there's still no way to predict these things. So all we can do is plan.
Well, and it's not only like, I think someone I have to explain, your healthcare insurance you have right now does not cover long-term care.
Right.
It'll cover a little rehab for, a month or two or something. So like if you had a stroke right now and you need rehab for a year, you'd be paying that bill. And you might be better at the end, but you'd be paying a bill. Also, Medicare does not pay for long-term care again. 90 to 100 days, they'll do rehab, and then you're on your own. And I think the hard part is that's the time when you need the help the most, but you're hurt, so you really can't figure out ways to do it. I mean, it's not like a fancy oh, I'm going to be in a nursing home in a year, so let me change my finances. It's like either you plan now or you're out of luck.
But what about people who spend down money to get Medicaid coverage for long-term care? Have you seen, I don't know, I was talking about that yesterday with my estate planning attorney. And first of all, the facilities that you have access to. And then second of all, doesn't the state come after you for the funds?
Okay.
Mhm.
So I got people that go oh, I want to be on Medicaid because that's going to cover it. Well, two things. And by the way, you may be looking at the same thing for your parents or, family members of it. Before you decide you want to use Medicaid, go look at Medicaid facilities. Just look at the care you're getting. My grandmother ended up in a nursing home for quite a while. We paid for a private room for her. It was not all her money. I mean, we spent every penny she had left, but it was her money. But you know what? She got great care. And you would hope, money doesn't matter in the totality of care. That's just like a dream. All right. So go look at it. Now, Medicaid has what's called a 5-year look back. So if you're like, I'm going to give my money to my kids or my wife or whatever, and then I'll qualify for Medicaid. If you do it within 5 years, Medicaid then goes, nope, you're not qualified for Medicaid for as long as that money's been going out or spent down or weird math. And California's actually looking to move to 7 years on that. And what happens is then we get into issues. The other one is, how about if I'm a couple? Well, what are our assets together and what protects mine? There's actually a concept. I was just working on this for somebody of a Medicaid divorce. I want to get a divorce so that my spouse, I'm like, wow, that's like a bad option. Say to my wife, yep, bye, you're on your own, good luck. It's just, so saying, well, Medicaid's going to do this. I think the hard part is you don't know what your situation is and how it's going to impact your family. If you're looking to say, hey, I want to give something to the next generation, they talk about baby boomers. They're going to give a whole bunch to their kids. This transfer of wealth. No, they aren't. They're going to be paying for nursing homes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. In that same vein, we're talking about creating a trust, like a long-term care trust as an option, as a way to protect money once you go into those into long-term care. So have you worked with people who have had long-term care trusts?
Yeah. So there is a whole world of these estate planning attorneys. Their job is to lock things up so that they can't be counted and different things. It works as long as you're thinking a decade out at least. But most people are I'm starting to feel ill. Now no, you're too late. Okay. And trusts are kind of weird. Attorneys like selling them because they make money. I'm not an attorney, so I don't always say a trust makes sense. A trust is useful for protecting your money or controlling it after death. With my child-free clients, trust is almost never used because they don't really care about where their money goes after death. They're going to donate to somebody or whatever. The trust for estate planning, what happens then is a lot of people do the paperwork, but then they don't actually put the trust into place. So you need to create the trust, you need to fund the trust, you need to have a trustee, you have a trust tax reporter. There's a whole bunch of paperwork. And like, I swear, like the lawyers sell trusts and people go, oh, I'm doing it fancy. I got a trust. Like, it looks fancy, but it doesn't necessarily always get to what you expected. A trust is really another $1,500 the attorney can bill for. It's like asking the barber if you need a haircut. The answer is yes. I think it's a balancing act. If you're going to do something like that, you need to do it way in advance. And it depends on how much money you have. So I could do all this fancy trust to protect my $1 million asset, or I can just buy a long-term care policy and then do whatever I want with the rest of my money. I'm not saying one or the other, but it's like, those are the debates. The other way that some people do it is they take a certain amount of money, then we do a math equation. It's a guesstimate of like, if I invest it and this is how it grows over time, and you self-fund your long-term care. The caution with this is you have to put in an account that you will never touch. Like, oh, well, I'm having trouble making my bills. You don't touch that long-term care. And most people are not great at that. Like we don't have that, that self-determination to say, yeah, I'm not going to touch my nest egg there. And I don't know. When people start talking about this stuff, I have two types of people. People come to me and ask, they're worried about it and they want to find an answer. Cool. The other ones are like, their eyes just start glazing over. They're like, this is too overwhelming. I just can't even think about it. And it's like the same people say, well, I can't get a will because I'm worried I'm going to die. Well, the only reason to not get a will is if you hate your family. You need a plan for all this stuff. So I think the hard part of this is just like having a plan. And my goal is by your mid-40s to decide, am I going to pay for myself, long-term care, or Medicaid? And then following that through. The other part of this, and this is something we'll probably do a separate episode, is to make sure you have all the paperwork that matches your will, your living will, all of that. But you need to have an answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And when you're talking about like the glazing over, like that was exactly the thing that came to mind is that those are the same people that don't put their estate plan in place and all of those kind of things. And these are things that we need to think about. And as you're saying, sooner than later, because I was even like, okay, I still have some time, but now my 10-year timeline kind of got condensed down to 5 years. But still, I mean, it's important to know that it'll be cost effective at that age, because that was what I was always told. It's not going to be very cost effective earlier on to get those policies. But it's super important to look at these things. And I think what ends up happening is people think of it as something this is something that rich people do. This is not something that I need to do because I'm not going to have a lot of money anyway. And I'll kind of fall into that Medicaid category. And like you said, actually, most people fall in between that 500,000 to 3 million. And it's not hard to get to, especially if you have been doing some things intentionally to set up your wealth. And so these are conversations that need to be had, but aren't had often enough and aren't had in a way that seems approachable for most people, because most people are just like, that's just too over my head. And so I like the way that you presented it, because it makes it like, okay, you need this. You probably need to start planning for it now. And this is what it looks like. And either you're going to set aside a whole bunch of cash, or you're going to get your long-term care insurance policy in place ASAP.
Yep. Now, let me give you one more spin on this, because most or a lot of Americans are in this point where they're taking care of their parents too. So what if your parents don't have a plan for long-term care? And I always, when I talk about one person's long-term care, I always talk about their parents at the same time, because I actually believe your parents' decisions on finances may have more impact on your finances than your own decisions. So like, for example, I always tell people with their parents, set good boundaries, whatever they want. And for me and my wife, we said, nobody lives with us. That's just a boundary. We'll pay for other things, but like, we just can't, nobody lives with us. And that might sound harsh, but that's just our rule. But when it comes to long-term care, well, the question is, well, now, are you going to help pay for your family? Are you going to let them go on Medicaid? Are you going to let them in a crappy care situation? Are you going to pay for somebody to take care of from home? What are you going to do? And one of the interesting things I've actually worked with people on is either putting aside money or taking on a long-term care policy on your parents, which gets expensive. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's cheaper than you paying for them to get care or doing that. And I think people they can picture their parents going into long-term care because they're closer to it. And I've actually had people, they get it all set for their parents, but not for themselves. I'm like, what? You got to do both. Seriously, you just said it's an issue for them. It'll be an issue for you. But you need to have a plan for that. And I don't know. I mean, Naseema, are you going to take care of your family members or your parents or others?
I definitely was just thinking that, if something happens to my dad, I'm gonna have to take care of him. And so I literally is just writing a note to myself, look up long-term care policies for my dad. And I think he has one, but I need to look into it. And so yeah, because it will fall on me. And that could definitely impact my finances. And I'd rather plan for that now than later.
So interestingly enough, there were some really nice long-term care policies, came out decades ago. Let's just, pre-us. And your parents may be on one of those. I found some where I'm like, wow, this is amazing what they're getting for the coverage. You might want to take over paying for that policy. Because that policy, if they're living on Social Security, whatever, cutting it, that'll be one of those they cut. And here's how it works with long-term care. Just so you know, you miss a payment or two, you're done. They are looking for any excuse to kick you off, especially these old policies. There are a bunch of CalPERS and a few others, weird since you're in California, they're specific state
I'm
policies.
sure that's the one my dad has.
Yep.
He's a state employee, a city employee. Yeah. So, or he just retired last year. So yeah, city employee, all those things. So I'm sure that's the plan he has.
So a great example is the California plan. I just helped a couple people with this recently. The state, because of costs and all that fun stuff, they were like, okay, either we're going to raise your rate or lower your coverage. Well, I looked at the coverage, and the original plan was a certain amount per day. I forget what that was. It was high for unlimited for the rest of your life, forever. I was like, wow. But the odds of you using, 40 years of care is low. But they're like, oh, well, you could change it to a 6-year coverage, which is still a long time, and maintain the same premium. Or so there's these debates. But what happens is people go, well, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'll just cut this policy out. And as soon as that's done, there is no going back. By the way, I could see Naseema writing me an email after. So I checked with my dad, and he didn't pay the policy, and I'm going to kill him. It is one of those. For people that have long-term care policies, especially the old legacy ones, my rule is you pay that policy before you pay your groceries or anything else. That's the first bill that gets paid every month. And people go, well, that's a little extreme. No, it's not. This is going to be your end of life. Give you an idea, the in-home care for many of them includes housekeeping services, cooking for you, cleaning up, as long as you have what they call 2 activities of daily living that you have problems with, bathing, feeding yourself, whatever, they'll actually come in and do a whole bunch of stuff. They'll give you an aging care manager, somebody that can help you out. They cover great if you have it. If you let it go, you're on your own.
Yep. I'm going to check with my dad. I'm going to be pretty ticked off because he's kind of one of those people that I don't need it. Just throw me in a place. And, he's one of those kind of miserly kind of people. So I could see that happening. And I'm going to check with him today. Oh, my goodness.
So, by the way, I could see this happening. Naseema's going to Dr. J told me this. So one more fun one or less fun. I don't know. I will get. So interestingly enough, when I talk to people long-term care, a large percentage, especially in the child-free community, are going with the opt-out option. I'm not going to get old. I'm going to, go to Oregon or Switzerland to the suicide pods and call my time at a certain place. And we can have a separate debate on the ethics and, whether you believe in euthanasia and all the other stuff. But if that is truly your plan, The hard part is you can't change your answer. Like if you're like, yep, I'm going to be opting out, like, and by the way, I don't blame you. You want to be 80 and run off into the sunset and, never be seen again. Fine. But you can't be 80 and then like, oh yeah, that was a great plan when I was 40, but now I need like, yeah. So if you're going to choose, I have people like, well, I'm just going to whatever. And a lot of them believe it. Cool. As long as you're 100%. If there's any doubt, you need a financial plan.
But most people cannot even decide what they're going to eat for dinner, or how can they make a decision like that and feel so confident? I mean, like working in healthcare and seeing people have to make just basic healthcare decisions. And I work in a place where people are mostly healthy, but like the decision where people are like, if I'm going to get an epidural or not, and they're so gung ho on having a natural delivery until the time comes, and they're just like, give me my epidural, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, I put everything in that lens because that's what I see as far as like people making decisions. And I cannot imagine somebody making an end of life decision and being so confident about it.
Yeah. And I very carefully question people when they put that as part of their financial plan. And I'll be honest, some of people, I mean, I 100% agree that's what they're going to do. Like they know they're going to, they're making an end of life decision. They're going to stick with it. And I believe them. The hard part. So somebody brought this case to me. It was interesting. Is a family has a large history of Alzheimer's. And she said, hey, when I lose my mind, I'd like to, opt out. And by the way, I understand my family has a large Alzheimer's history. One of my big fears is losing my mind. Like, I get it. Like, I truly get it. But then I went, our healthcare system's broken. She's like, I want to go to Switzerland for the suicide pod if I lose my mind. The odds of the person who's, your medical power of attorney being able to get that done is zero. Once you're in the medical system, could you imagine signing out AMA to go to another country to be, I can't.
No, it's not going to happen, especially because people that say that then don't put the things in place. And then once you get a diagnosis, that doctor is going to do what they need to do. And no, not with the way our healthcare system is set up. Like, good luck. Like, you're going to be in court for 20 years trying to get that person out of care, or you're going to be criminally charged.
This was we were trying to figure out the legal paperwork. We're working for lawyers and all that. And I put on my healthcare hat and I was like, I don't care what you have written. Like, the doctor's going to go, yeah, that is way too much liability for me to sign off on. If somebody has Alzheimer's, they're like, yep, their family member's not making a good decision. I'm going to make decisions for them. Like, these are the things that go into long-term care. All right. The money stuff is actually the easier part. Like, who's going to make decisions for you and how, or what do you want? It's hard, but you need to do that now, not once you get sick. Especially if it's a dementia or Alzheimer's or cognitive, once you start showing cognitive decline, you may not be able to make your own decisions. And by the way, that doesn't mean you have to be old to do that. Like,
I mean, I just lost one of my coworkers at 36, and I'm sure she thought she had time to make more decisions. And so I think this is a timely conversation, especially like just in my life, because of course I'm in that sandwich generation where I'm planning for my kids, but also planning for my father, who's a big part of my life because he helps me with my kids. And so this is super timely, super like for me to reflect on my policies, on my parents' policies, which, you want to think about, but then you don't. You kind of feel like, well, we'll get to that when it happens, but why not plan for it? Like, and I think that's a great suggestion. Like, I will be taking over his payments if they're still there.
Well, it's funny. It's like, you're going to be like, Dad, I'm going to pay for that. He's going to be like, you're going to do what? Like, it's just peace of mind. Seriously.
Yeah. Seriously.
Change the bill to send it to me. And I saw like the CalPERS. I think it was like $3,000 a year for the unlimited. It was like something silly. Like, I was like, for somebody in their 60s. I was like, wow, this is super cheap. Like, don't quote me on the price, but it was
we're gonna write the whole check for the year, okay? Because I want to make sure it doesn't lapse, because we gonna have to take care of this, okay? This is before my kids' retirement. College fund. This is before all that stuff. Like, listen, we will take care of it. Yes.
Yep. One other thing, just side note on long-term care. If you're a vet, you get VA benefits. There actually are some long-term care benefits for vets that are separate. Those might be through VA homes and others. Also, if you're caring for your elderly parents, a lot of them may qualify for vet benefits and not even realize it. Like they were
That's
in
another
Vietnam or
thing.
something.
Yeah, that's my dad. That's my dad.
We may be able to get dad coverage through the VA, and people don't think about that stuff. And by the way, the time to start working on that coverage is now, because it actually helps both on medical and long-term care and all that. But you want to be able to take care of everything. And I think you understand this because you come out of medical. When you have medical issues, you don't make great financial decisions. Like, when you're not feeling well. So you want to do all of this as far in advance as you can.
Yeah, I have some work to do for myself. I have some work to do for my dad, but I am happy we had this conversation right now because I feel like I'm at an optimal time where I am relatively healthy and I can get these policies in place for a relatively inexpensive price, but also I have the ability to financially support my father's policy. So that is something that is on my to-do list for this week. So thank you so much for that, Dr. J.
Absolutely.
I know that there are so many other people that are in the same place and can benefit for this information. And I hope this kicks you into gear to take action because you are in that population that can benefit from this. So thank you again, Dr. J, for such valuable information.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at childfreewealth.com. And I don't know about you, but for me, 2022 was actually a pretty good year. So as an opportunity to give back, I'm doing a little bit of financial freedom planning here in February. So for 45 people, I'm doing a half an hour free financial planning. That no like strings, no nothing. Just come ask me your question. This email will include the link, but you can come say, hey, what about long-term care or your investing or your budgeting, whatever it is. Here's an opportunity to talk to a CFP without having to put out the bill. It's just an opportunity for me to give back to the community that's been so great to me.
And I hope you guys understand how gracious that is because his time is very valuable. So I hope you're able to take advantage of that because that is something that he does not need to do, but I know could benefit so many people. So thank you for that as well, Dr. J.
Great.